Yeah, so let's get into the movie review. And of course, I mentioned at the top of the show, but again, the movie that we watched was Sunset Boulevard. Came out in 1950s, or it came out in the year 1950. Let me just give you a quick synopsis of the movie. Yes, an aging silent film queen refuses to accept that her stardom has ended. She hires a young screenwriter to help set up her movie comeback. The screenwriter believes he can manipulate her, but he soon finds out that he is wrong. The screenwriter ambivalence about their relationship and her unwillingness to let go leads to a situation of violence, madness, and death.
Yeah, that's a good synopsis. Well, what do you think of the movie, Andy?
Oh, I liked it. I really liked it. It's I was kind of alluding to something in the beginning, and a lot of people may not be familiar with the title of this film, but you're at least familiar. You should be at least familiar with one scene in this movie, and it comes at the end when what is it? The main character, the aging.
What is Norma Everett?
Yeah, Norma Desmond. Yeah.
Norma Desmond, thank you.
Norma Desmond. Yeah, she kind of finally has her mental break, and she thinks that the police and are all around her, and she thinks that that they're filming her movie, and then she utters the famous lines like I'm ready for my close up, Mr. DeMille.
Yeah, that was one of the I had forgotten that this was the movie where that line came from. So it was kind of like a shock. It's like, oh, that's right, that's where this comes from.
Yeah, exactly. And Cecil B. DeMille, he actually makes a cameo in this movie as himself. So
yeah, because this was filmed by him.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, but it was yeah, because you had so the main character, what's his name?
Joe Gillis.
Yeah.
Joe Gillis, played by William Holden.
Yeah, he because he's kind of he's a failing screenwriter essentially. He's kind of not really. It's kind of on his last legs in Hollywood.
Right.
None of his stuff is getting sold.
Right. And he's got repo men after him for his car, and
so he's kind of doing some shady stuff, and he ends up. I think he blew out a tire while he was escaping them, and he ended up pulling into this garage to what looked like an abandoned house or abandoned mansion. And it turns out this is where he finds Norma Desmond and her weird butler.
Yeah. Max von Mayerling?
Yeah, something crazy like that. But yeah, Max was the guy.
Yeah, I think I would say Uncle Fester crossed with Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's like Igor meets Uncle Fester a little bit. Yeah.
That's another good one. Yeah.
So obviously so he's there, and then she ends up, because I think she mistook him initially for somebody else that she had hired.
Right. Yeah, she confused him for the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, because apparently her pet chimpanzee died, but by the look of the chimpanzee's body, it's been dead for a while. It looked kind of like emaciated.
Yeah. So it had been in there a while.
Yeah.
And so you have that problem. So and then she ends up kind of like, what's I'm trying to think of the movie where I think it has Kathy Bates in it, where she like kidnaps that book writer.
That's Misery.
Misery, yeah. This reminded me a little bit like Misery in a sense, where like because she kind of essentially like kidnaps him and like keeps him in that house. Like cause she has Max bring all his stuff over from his apartment and like essentially moves him into that house.
Right. Yeah, because she finds out that he's a screenwriter, and is like, oh, well, I've been working on this. I've been working on this screenplay. For my what was it? Or how she say it? Her return, not a comeback, but a return.
Right.
And so like an insane person, she has her manservant go to his apartment and collect all his things, and then move him into like the upper room over the garage, and just slowly. It's almost like a cult or what is it? Or just kind of like a very manipulative kind of person, where they just slowly do like little things to bring them into like into that person's lives until like they're basically trapped. So it's like first like, oh yeah, why why go all the way back to your place if you're just gonna work here? You just move in. You could have the room above the garage. It's like, and then it rains, and then there's a leak, and it's like, oh no, this won't do. So I have all these bedrooms. Just come in and and take one of those rooms. And slowly but surely, like she brings him in, and living in the house, and then buys him clothes and all these little trinkets here and there.
I'll say she must have had a shit ton of money because how she'd been out of the movies for so long, yet was able to still buy these extremely extravagant items and stuff. Like,
and she was able to pay for the kind of rest, because initially when what is it, Joe Gillis, the main character, he happens upon her mansion. It looks pretty worn down and dilapidated and not really well taken care of. And then in the course of like a few months, when I guess the weather got warmer, she was able to restore her pool.
Yeah, so she had a lot of money, like that was just hanging around, and obviously she was still fairly famous because everyone kind of recognized her.
Right. Yeah.
But
unless she was like still getting like residuals, or I don't know how like film and TV worked back then, but I don't know, like maybe a few TV stations would play her stuff, and maybe she got residuals. I don't know, or maybe she came from money.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I think we're led to assume that it's like she made so much money from.
Right, she was such a huge movie star back in her heyday that she just has globs and globs of money.
Yeah, it pretty much a nearly limitless amount of money. But so yeah, it's weird. Like, yeah, it's kind of this weird. Everyone's kind of manipulating one another in this because she starts to fall for him, and that's kind of like why she's keeping him, trying to draw him in closer and closer. And he's like, at this point, like now he's kind of dependent on her, and so he kind of like gives into it, I think.
Yeah, he becomes a kept man,
yeah.
Kind of that the reverse of the reverse positions of a May December relationship, but it's like the woman is the one with the money, and she has like a young lover who she takes care of or supports. But I mean, even that situation begins like great on him because he's like, oh, I'm a man, I'm supposed to be the one, who's supposed to, who should be taking care of people, the woman, and blah 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 blah. And so it's the slow boil is what it is. It's the frog that slowly gets boiled over time.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, it was kind of and then you have Max, who, come to find out, was, obviously he's been with her for a long time, and kind of, we find out later on that Norma is kind of a weird. She has suicidal tendencies sometimes. So, like, there's no locks on any door. There's no like doorknobs or locks or anything like that. So she can't like hide away and like try to kill herself. And even further than that is there's certain things like that. Max has knowledge of things like that. Obviously she's thinking she's gonna make this big return to the movies. And come to find out, it's like that's just not going to happen. And when she thinks that like she's getting, phone calls for certain things, it was actually for
from the studio.
Else.
When after she submits her screenplay to different studios, one of the studios, is calling her, and she thinks like, oh yeah, I told you they call. Of course they would call. But she's like, no, but we can't let on that we can't let on. We have to be like kind of like in a power play. She's like, no, don't answer the phone because we can't be the ones to be answering the phone. We'll go to them, and and she thought that she was gonna leverage the studio into a better deal and make her movie, make her return. But it turns out it was just because they wanted to rent her car for a movie because she had a very exotic and eccentric car.
Right. And it was like, I think it was shortly after that we actually find out that that Max, the butler, was actually her first husband. And it's like. And
also a director.
Yeah, that was the other thing. And,
right, and he said that he was the one that discovered her, and so like he feels like some responsibility for like her current predicament, and her like and her loose grip on sanity.
Right, and it's like at that point it's like, well, don't you think that like just lying to her, like you're just manipulating her, like you're not actually.
Yeah, you're not. Because like by him like constantly shielding, her from reality, and like he's actually doing her harm as opposed to good.
Yeah, it's weird. Everyone's kind of like. It's seemingly innocent, all kind of all around. Like I think they're doing it for certain reasons. Like Norma, she I think really wanted to have that connection like with like a man again. She wanted to get back in the movies, and she felt that like Joe was kind of like a way to both of those. You have Max, who is he feels responsible for Norma, yet. Obviously like is thinking by like shielding her and protecting her is making things, but is kind of helping her, but it's actually harming her. And then you have the main character Joe, who initially like, he's trying to get back, he wants to, kind of similar to Norma, wants to get into Hollywood, start making good screenplays again. And I don't know if he feels any sort of real feelings towards Norma. He may have, but
at a certain point where like those feelings might have vacillated, depending on what type of mood Norma was in.
Right. So, and I think like he for a time there, I think he did genuinely care, but he always kind of like waffled like between like himself and her, and it's just, I think
having genuine like feelings or emotions for Norma, and like what she can do for her or what she can do for him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's also kind of a little bit like The Graduate going on there too between him and Norma.
A little bit, yeah. It's like Mrs. Desmond, I think you're trying to seduce me. Yeah. Oh man, what was I was gonna say something. Oh, yeah. And there was like that line, when he was, when Joe was, kind of feeling a little fed up, and Norma was doing like her beauty treatments and whatnot, and I think he delivered like one of the most, I think, memorable or iconic lines from this movie. I mean, other than I'm ready for my clothes up, Mr. DeMille. There's nothing wrong with being, when he kind of like, in frustrations, like he's like, Norma, you gotta stop this. There's nothing wrong with being 50 unless you're trying to be 25.
Yeah, and I think that was like one of those moments. Like, I think he was, because he did genuinely care. Mm-hmm. That he's well, it does sound cruel. It's like you're killing yourself for no reason,
right?
It's and because he knew the truth that she was never going to get that film, and even to a point too, you had Cecil B. DeMille, who cared for her too, but it's like he didn't want to like go out there and specifically say like, yeah, we don't. It's not going to happen. Like it was kind of like the same thing. Like everyone's trying to, kind of care for and like not. I wouldn't say manipulate, but like they're trying to help each other in a lot of ways. But like it always goes south. Like it doesn't. The helping does a lot more hurt than it does.
Right. It's. I mean, an alternate. An alternate title for this movie could have been, I don't know, like Good Intentions, or The Road to Hell, because because seemingly, these are all like these people. If we were to view them as people who are generally trying to, look out for the best interest of Norma Desmond's character, it's like, all these people are just, doing what they think is best for her. Like even Cecil B. DeMille, he's like, he told the studio to stop calling Norma Desmond about the car. We'll figure out something else, because he understands that it's cruel. It's just especially when he finds out why she's there, and then he puts the pieces together, and it's like, oh man, this is really cruel. Like he's like, yes, just like stop calling her. Don't we'll figure the car out some other way. But don't call Norma Desmond anymore. And it's like, and it was and that was, I think, very, very paternal of him.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's a crazy movie, man. Like and all the characters, all the acting was really good. They pulled off all these characters well. Like Norma, like really.
Gloria Swanson.
Gloria Swanson knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean she owned that role.
Oh my god, yeah, she was great. I think she stole the show in my.
Absolutely, she chewed up that scenery. With the over the top, like gestures and looks, and the kind of way, like the way she enunciated her words.
Yeah, and you see throughout the movie, she goes from this like really strong air of confidence, like like she's the shit, and you see the descent into madness as the movie goes along, and it kind of it crescendos at the end with like the famous line, "I'm ready for my close up, Mr. DeMille." I mean, just her facial acting, she looked like a fucking loon bag.
She looked like a crazy person. She absolutely
like
looked like a crazy person.
Crazy she looked.
Right. Yeah, 100%. She absolutely looked like a crazy person. I was sold. I was like, man, get this bitch to a padded room ASAP.
Yeah. But yeah, this is I don't know. I had never seen this movie before for some reason, and I thought it would be kind of a good one to review. I'm glad that we watched it. It's a top-notch film. It's great.
Absolutely great. Yeah, and I mean, just for myself, like just knowing the context of the last line of the movie is great. Because I've always seen like that clip, or I've seen like homages of that clip, but I never understood like what the context of that scene was until watching this movie. It's like, now I know.
Yeah, and that was kind of how the movie reviews got started. Anyways, it's kind of, we know all these tropes and lines from movies, yet there's so many we hadn't seen a lot of these movies that they're from. So yeah, it's kind of nice to go back and see where this originates from.
Right. Yeah, even you just jogged my memory just now. Last week when we did American Graffiti, and that scene where what's his face, Toad is trying to get booze. I remembered where I've seen that scene before, and that I was in The Simpsons. The episode where they go to the beach, and then Homer's trying to buy illegal fireworks, and he's like just ask for like a whole bunch of random stuff. And he slyly tries to, and illegal fireworks, and some condoms.
Yeah, it's like exactly. Yeah, that's an American Graffiti trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it was funny because because there's been certain movies where was it a few weeks ago I watched Taxi Driver for the first time. Now here's the thing is like, but I know the movie because I know like there's so many of the lines and famous like aspects to that film that's like I know the film before I ever actually watched it, but then watching it all within its context, kind of like, oh, okay, that's how that got started. Okay, that makes sense. And there's certain movies that are like that I think you could say like, oh, I know this movie even if you've never watched it, just because they're so iconic, so famous.
Right. Yeah, because I'm sure like everyone's heard either the line oh, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory. Like either that line or some variation of that line. But not know where it's from. By the by, that's from Apocalypse Now.
Because speaking of another crazy movie, crazy person movie.
Yeah, but I'm sure. Yeah, because everyone has made like either heard that line or has heard some sort of variation of that line as like an homage or just like a copy. But yeah, it's like, but we're kind of doing some cinematic archaeology in a way.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, and I'm looking forward to finding out like more things.
I can't wait to watch a movie. It's like I know, it's like I saw that reference somewhere. It was like, now I know where it came from.
And it's crazy because obviously everyone knows I'm a giant Simpsons fan, but going through and watching a lot of these movies, it's like, oh shit, I've seen this on The Simpsons 1,000 times. Like now I know. I thought it was funny, to begin with, but like now I'm seeing where they're getting a lot of their material from, and it's because they love these movies, so it's like they wanted to bring that out in the show, and it's great. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, yeah, cinematic archaeology. I like that. That's a great way of putting it.
Okay, let's get into our rating. Do you want to start off?
Yeah, I'll start off. This is a 4.5 for me. It's for 1950, like I actually thought that this could have been a movie from like 10 years after that. Like it didn't feel really dated or anything to me. I think the acting overall for especially the three main characters was out of the park. Like with Gloria Swanson stealing the show.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And yeah, I kind of like seeing that descent into madness that Norma takes in the movie, and just it's great, man. This is a must watch. I'm probably gonna watch it again. Not too far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a 4.5 for me.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna give this a 4, but I think I'm more inclined to agree with you and give it a 4.5.
All
Yeah,
right, all right.
yeah, because this movie was great. Yeah, it's, from black. Yeah, it's black and white and from a bygone era, but it's in a really weird way. It's still kind of relevant because
I
nothing has really changed. We're still like youth obsessed, and women are I mean, nowadays women are literally putting penises on their faces to look younger.
yeah,
So, and that scene where Norma Desmond's character is like going through like the regimen of the face mask and the massages and like the weird electrolysis. It's like nothing's really changed. I mean, for like the Hollywood starlet,
right.
that.
Yeah, so it's it was going on back then. It's still
Mm-hmm.
going on today. Maybe with different in different ways, but it's
Right.
essentially like the same.
Exactly.
And everyone's trying to get ahead and shield and protect one another, but it kind of works out in this same way where a lot of people just end up getting used and hurt and thrown to the side. So
Right, and I
it's
think in a weird way, yeah, because I mean, we didn't discuss this, but there's like kind of like a B plot where Joe is has this has interactions with this girl Betty Schaefer, who's a reader at the studio. That's someone who who takes like the submitted scripts and gives them the once over and kind of says like, oh, this one's garbage, this one's great, this one needs to be worked on a little bit more. She's like kind of like a gatekeeper in that sense. um,
right.
but yeah, they have like this little slide story. The B plot is Joe's feeling smothered, so he goes and like has like these interactions with Betty, and slowly they kind of start falling for each other. And Joe has like this realization, like this Zen realization that he's in too deep, and his only way out is death. And so he knows that so that when he after he kind of he kind of has to break Betty's heart. Um, and sends her away. He goes, he kind of goes, very Zen-like to his death, because he goes back to Norma and confronts her. It's like, yeah, I'm leaving. It's just, this isn't working out anymore, and blah blah. And like she threatens to like shoot him. It's like, oh, don't think I'm not gonna shoot you, Joe. And it's like, he kind of has like this, like, well, you got to do what you got to do. And she ends up killing him. But
Yeah.
it's like it's a very Zen kind of death, because he kind of just like he goes into it knowing fully well that he's gonna die.
Yep. Yeah, it's like like I said, the acting all around was just, it was great. You see, and I love the story, love the characters. Great
Absolutely.
movie.